My first experience with thinking about going to Africa, I was doing a convention at the AME uh, church. They were having an evangelistic convention, and I was chosen each year to tape that. And this one particular year, I met this guy from Africa. 'Cause the AME church is pretty heavy into African uh, evangelism and African, what do you call it, where they do missionary work. So he told me I should visit Africa. I said, yes, a good thought. I would love to go over there, but I'm saying in my own mind, never, because I don't have no way of getting over there. And I guess that was the beginning, because about 3 or 4 years later, at our camp meeting, I met Elder Bruce, and he said, Turner, why don't you come on go to Africa with me? I said, Elder Bruce, I can't afford to go over there, but I would love to go. And he said, let me talk to you. Let me get back with you. And he called me. He said, if my church pays half the fare, would you go? I said, yeah, I'd be glad to like that. I said, I could swing that, and I'd be glad to go over there. He wanted me to film for him. And that's how I got to Africa. What I might expect when I got to Africa, I just wasn't sure. It was all anticipation and anxiety. In fact, I was kind of afraid. Everybody was afraid before I left. And be careful, be careful. And finally, after I got there, we landed and they picked us up. And we took out, the first thing they did was take us to get some water and other supplies. And when we stopped, man, I said, I called my wife. I said, I got on myself on the call to tell her how safe it was and how good it was. While I'm on the phone talking, I hear all this noise. And these guys, about 10 guys chasing this one man. They were young fellows, but they were chasing him with machetes and knives and stuff. And I said, man, they're not playing. They ran him down, and I got afraid they're going to come toward us because it was pretty close. Next thing I know, you see emergency wagons come, and this boy's laying out in a pool of blood. I think he had stolen something, and that is something that's not taken on too easy over there when you steal. And I think he died. And that was one of my scary moments right after I was saying how safe it was. I was getting ready to say how safe it was. And I was kind of glad when we left there. The thoughts came to my mind. I said, this is not God's way for his people to be living like this. There's got to be something wrong. So I decided I want to go out and I want to talk to these people firsthand. I want to see what's wrong. And I did. I had some observances. I'm not saying that I was right, but I see the same problem I see over here, but it seems like it's worse. But it's a massive disobedience to God.
Yeah, and start cooking. So this is their kitchen.
Okay.
This is their kitchen. Oh, it's a bit dark here. This is supposed to be their storeroom. That's where they store their food. Unfortunately, we don't have electricity. You, you are
So
not
why is it
able
these
to
people can't
see.
eat? Why they can't raise their own food? Why they can't do this? So during my questioning, and I ask a lot of questions when I'm around, some things I probably shouldn't, but I wind up asking them, what would it take for them to grow their own farm? They said, we need water, and we need a pump, and we need pipes. And the white man had pumps. He had pipes to run to his farm. But the banks would not let the black man have money. So they didn't have the means. So they wound up in the most rocky place, the driest parts of Zimbabwe, even though the government had built dams all over, reservoirs, not dams, reservoirs all over Zimbabwe. But the only people who were benefiting from them was the white farmers. So I came in my mind, I asked the question, what would it take to get one of these pumps? They told me about $500. I said, whoa. I said, I stand for that. I said, things are kind of tight, but I'm going to buy that and get you started. This is the tractor that we bought last year, or the year before, and we had a picture of it previously. Now this year they've bought a second tractor, and they're trying to repair a third one based on the amount of work that they're doing here now. And their farms have expanded quite a bit, so they got much use for another tractor. They've even brought in new farm workers. In fact, one of the previous things I wanted to do was bring the farm workers off of the white man's farm over here was one of our intents, and now this has happened already. They've also hired some of the people off of the farm where people's on the white folks' farm because they're harvesting so much. Then as I thought about it, I said it's going to take more than the pump. It's going to take pipe as well as the pump to do this. So I asked them for an estimate before I left there.
If we have got more sprinklers, we can irrigate 20 hectares at one time.
Mrs. Edith Tichwanwi, the school head of Nyazura Adventist High School. Once again, I would like to thank the people of America for what they've done for us. Having this irrigation scheme has transformed our school a great deal.
So they gave me a thing of about $3,500. And at that point, I just said to myself, I said, man, I said, I didn't tell them this, but I said, there is no way I can do that. I said, God gonna have to lay this in my hand himself for me to do this. And I guess this was God's way of getting me, because he sure showed me, because he delivered the exact amount to my hands, exactly $3,500 from the first two people I asked. It was really amazing the way it happened. So from that point on, when we did that, that was going to be a one-time thing, but then as I did it, I got impressed more and more. In fact, I sent a copy of the tape when I first got back from Zimbabwe to a man in Huntsville, Alabama, a brother William Allen, which I had never met at this point. We met over the phone talking about different things, but not about Africa. But I something that I was impressed to send them a copy of the tape where I went to Zimbabwe. And during this time, uh, about I guess 2 or 3 days after he received the tape, he called me up on the phone. He said, "Bro Turner, we're watching the tape now for the third time." He said, "And we were quite impressed at what we saw, and we want to help." He said, "In fact, we're gonna send you something." I didn't know what he was gonna send, but he got $500 from one person. I don't know today who it was. He sent $1,500. And then it went from there to I met one other person in out of Winter Park, Florida, from one of the churches there. I told him what we were doing. He was so impressed. He said, "Turner," he said, "Brother Turner, I want to help. We want to help too." He said, "In fact, put us down, my church down for $1,500. This is Patmos Chapel in Winter Park, Florida. And not even knowing what was going on faith, they stuck out and gave me $1,500. And then when I thought about what had happened, I said, man, would you look at this? I said, now I said to the Lord, he had to put this in my hand, and he just put the exact amount in my hand. And at that, I said, I knew the Lord was calling me to do this. I didn't know what my ability, I don't have no great abilities, I don't think, but I guess through the Lord, everything's possible and he'll make it happen. He just put it right in front of you. And that's how it got started. And it went from there on and on and on until now we have the Nazura mission as a self-supporting, self-sustaining school. They produce all of their food now, that they don't have to go outside and source anything in. And by doing this, even the cows, the milk that they drink, they got their own milk from the cow stock we bought, and they kept reproducing. So now they were able to reduce their school fees, that they can attract more students. And this school has an A rating in Zimbabwe. It's the highest rated school in Zimbabwe.
We are able to produce a lot of our foodstuffs, which we would have needed to buy, and at the costs of things in Zimbabwe, that would make our school beyond reached by most students. But as you can see, this whole piece of land that is under irrigation, where there is a variety of crops, as has been explained by our farm manager. Beans is one of our staple foods, and the fact that this time they have a large acreage on irrigation, that means we are going to reduce costs heavily, enabling some of the poor children to have access to our school and get basic education.
How deep is this? Is it all the way down or just go so far?
Pardon?
How deep?